let's get started.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. As always, remember that the content of these videos are intended for individuals 13 years of age and older, and I greatly appreciate any likes, shares, and subscribes that you can link down below. Now, I'm currently in work-related seclusion. I'm getting ready for a big art show coming up, so I wanted to get away and make some art. As I'm working and getting things done, the artist that's on my mind is Oskar Kokoschka.
All set for today's lesson, Junior?
An artist that is not easily pegged into a nice little package is Oskar Kokoschka. He spent much of his childhood in Vienna, Austria, where his father was a goldsmith and struggled during the slow economic times. It was there that he entered the School of Applied Arts, where he painted crafts and postcards. This is the same school where Adolf Hitler had applied and was rejected as an artist. Hitler unfortunately failed the exam. If I had failed in his place, the world would have been spared a good deal of misery. Hitler would have become a bad painter, and I should have become a reasonable, understanding politician.
I disagree.
Although the end goal was actually to become an art teacher, he was kicked out of the school after his shocking expressionist works had been seen in a local art exhibition. He worked on writing expressionist plays and alongside architect Adolf Loos to help perfect his techniques as an artist. He was also greatly influenced by the artworks by Gustav Klimt, Egon Schiele, and Vincent van Gogh, and in a larger sense the artwork of the Baroque and Eastern Asia.
My friends.
The story of Kokoschka really begins to develop around the Great War, or, as we know it today, World War I. At the outbreak of World War I, Kokoschka was living in Germany and volunteered to serve. He became a dragoon, a foot soldier that is also trained to fight on horseback. By 1913, he was on the front lines, where he was seriously wounded and then discharged in 1916. After the war, he began traveling to gain inspiration and was teaching art around the world. He taught in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. He's not easily pegged into a category, but his countrymen would eventually call him a degenerate. He began to settle down again in Vienna when he became a little more than a little alarmed by the growing power of the Nazis. In 1935, he was living in Prague, Czechoslovakia. While he was there, he would change his citizenship to become a Czechoslovakian.
Are we there yet?
Now at that time, back in Nazi Austria, Hitler had labeled his artwork as degenerate. Angered and fearful of the German push toward Czechoslovakia after they had taken control of Austria, he would flee to England in 1938, where he would eventually become an English citizen, but would eventually move on to Switzerland to teach at the International Summer Academy of Art. He would found his own branch of this in Salzburg, Austria in 1953. Now, ultimately, how is Kokoschka remembered? Over his lifetime, Kokoschka became known as a stubborn artist who created amazing expressionist portraits and urban landscapes. Basically, there are two styles that his artwork would fit into: Die Brücke and Der Blaue Reiter. Die Brücke, or the bridge, was established with a manifesto in 1906. Leaders of the group were Kirchner, Nolde, and others that were largely self-taught, and many were former architect students. Die Brücke artists are known for a free-loved, naturalistic sort of sense of community that was very hippie-like.
Wow, man. That's some heavy shit, man.
Der Blaue Reiter, or the Blue Rider, was based out of Munich, and their artists would include notable names like Kandinsky, Klee, and Mark. Their influence was a little bit more in the vein of medieval Christianity, and they are symbolized by a blue horse, but they reject any uniform style.
But be realistic and be fair.
At any rate, with his high vantage point, which was no doubt an Asian influence, he would create these amazing painterly landscapes. He was able to bring ideas forward in these works by restricting the color palette, being aware of surface texture in the work, and thorough distortion of his subject matter.
Why, just imagine.
Kokoschka is known and respected for his portraiture. One of his favorite subjects, like in The Tempest, was his girlfriend. His best known portrait is called The Tempest, sometimes called The Bride of the Wind. After a long relationship with Alma Mahler, she would end up rejecting him for another man. One of the downsides of the relationship was that it was becoming a little bit too heated for Alma. She felt smothered by Oskar, who was obsessed with her, and it was getting out of control. So she would decide to leave him, and as one might guess, he didn't deal with that too well. The Tempest was painted as a tribute to her, alongside some 450 other works.
I don't want to see him ingratiating goblins.
Kokoschka was so into his girlfriend that he made a doll that looked like her. I probably need to tell that story.
Now, right off the start, I gotta tell you, this is a weird story.
About 4 years after their breakup, he would have a doll made, and the doll actually appears in some of his paintings. The woman asked to create the doll was Hamina Moose. She was given detailed instruction on how everything in the doll was supposed to be. The tongue, the teeth, the hair, all of the mathematical components of the doll's creation were laid out by Kokoschka. He wanted it to be exact. And exact in a weird sort of way. After numerous interventions and alterations, Kokoschka was finally pleased with the design of the product.
You're just reeking of feminine beauty.
When Kokoschka receives the doll, he opens up the box and he is horrified by this Yeti-looking doll, covered in fur. Despite some displeasure with the covering, Kokoschka was still committed to using the doll because, quite frankly, he had to stay committed to this crazy investment. Now, it is said that Kokoschka even took the doll out on dates. They would go to the opera and out to eat afterwards, him lugging this doll around with him. It had to have been something to see. After several years of dragging this doll around, the novelty of it certainly wore off, and Oskar felt that it was time to get rid of this companion. So in true Kokoschka fashion, he got rid of the doll in a big way. He hosted this big champagne party with chamber music and food and drinks, and everybody was having a great time. As the evening progressed, his maid brought out the doll, completely decked out in this really nice dress. Now this is at the end of the party and everybody is completely smashed, and they drag the doll out into the middle of the yard and they place her down in a lawn chair. He would proceed to chop the doll's head off and then smash a bottle of red wine over its head. The beheading of the doll was the climax of the party, and everybody went on their way, and Kokoschka went to bed. The following morning, he was in for quite a surprise. The local police arrived to search for a bloody, headless, naked corpse of a woman that seemed to be exhibited in the garden. The situation was explained, and it became a story of lore.
Stay away from women. That's my motto. But I can't. Neither can I. That's my trouble.
The years would pass, and despite failing eyesight, Kokoschka would continue to paint into his 90s. Many of his works hang in the best art museums around the world.
Oskar Kokoschka makes for a great story.
I've never seen anything like that before. And with any luck, I'll never see anything like it again. No! Play it again. Oh, right.